Equipment readout on this thing, I would say, easy, 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 without a shadow of a doubt. I would say a camo net, a gun laying drive, a gun rammer. Seeing that it's case made, definitely vents. Definitely vents to increase 5% of everything your crew does in this thing. From ground resistance to vision range, all of that, all of that. You do want to get this tank destroyer. You do. I'm not going to say, no, you don't need it. I mean, it's effective. It's very effective. The sloping of the front armor is genius, just straight up genius. You can bounce some incredible shots because of this angle alone. The front armor of, let's see, what's it at? 60. It's not the best, but the angle adds it. Adds even more armor value to it. Side, it's not as steep, but still has an angle that's good. But aside from this, I would strongly suggest this destroyer. Absolutely. Between this and the Martyr 38T, well, it's tough. Martyr 38T is different style altogether to how this is. I mean, they're similar in the fact that you hide in the bush and shoot, but this thing has the armor to take possibly a shot or two, and it can deflect it. The Martyr 38T really can't. But what does the Martyr 38T have over this? Again, it's the gun arc from side to side. This is limited to how far to the left it can aim, how far to the right it can aim before it has to move the whole tank. Say there's a guy on the right, you have to move the whole tank over there to aim for it, to make it centered. This, of course, destroys your camo rating and your binoc use. Again, this thing has the advantage of being case made and surrounded in armor. Well, the Martyr 38T does not have that. Its advantage is the gun arc it has. That's it. But shots with this gun are a lot more damning to a tank than that of the Panzer 38T. Or I should say, the Martyr 38T, not Panzer 38T. Do I suggest this tank? Absolutely. I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't even try it. My experience when I was still a new player on my first account, I still did good in it. I mean, it was effective. It could move around the field pretty quick. Low profile makes it hard for tanks to aim for you and shoot you and whatnot. But this is one of those tanks that people see on the battlefield and they're like, shit, get around it. We need to get this guy out of the game and fast. That's how effective that derp gun on this tank is. It's terrifying for tier 4 tanks. It's terrifying for tier 5 tanks, especially if you see one shooting your side or your back. Tier 6, it starts to really stretch the tank's ability. But like I said, I'm surprised that Wargaming put this tank at tier 4 when historically it was seeing IS-1 tanks and destroying them with little to no effort. Maybe in the future we might see it rebalanced and moved up a tier or two. We don't know at this point. No one knows what really is going on in Wargaming's mind. And to be honest, I don't think Wargaming knows what it's doing either with its mind. Anyway, on to the next. Oh god. Oh god, this thing. This thing. Oh my god. Here we have the PZ-38NA. Light tank based off a modified, obviously, Panzer 38T chassis. And I cannot say a damn good thing about this tank. This tank, if you're trying to learn how to play light tanks, this is your breaking tank. What I mean by breaking tank is this thing is going to teach you one way or another, and usually with whopping defeats. At least I did in this thing. Whopping defeats with this tank. on how to play light tanks. I still haven't mastered light tanks, and I think most of it, light tanks, was Panzer 1C I was thinking about, and that's how I was trying to play this thing, and I was in for a rude awakening. This thing does not play like the Panzer 1C at all, and it's I cannot say anything good about this tank. Nothing good at all. If you are inclined to buy it or need to get through it, I would suggest Camo Net for sure, coated optics, and binocs. Absolutely. Absolutely what you need. Maybe some vents to make your time a little more bearable in this thing. But it's seeing tier 6s, and if I remember right, maybe tier 7s. It's just a pitiful tank at this point. It's just, ugh. You just don't want anything to do with it. You just don't. It's one of those tanks you just want to free experience your way through, and possibly buy your way through if you're inclined to. It's not fun. It really isn't. Some people have success in it. Kudos to them. I played it and I couldn't stand being in the 100 some odd matches I needed to get out of this thing. Nothing good to say. Nothing good to say. Anyway, where are we? Of course, I went through that line to zip through that to get to the Panzer 4H, but it's tier 5. Next on the line is the Panzer 4D. Oh, I can't preview because he's in my garage already, so I can just preview him right here. Alright, Panzer 4D. What can I say about this thing? Again, if you've been watching my previous videos, I have admiration, lots of admiration and love for the Panzer 4 line of tanks. And it doesn't change. This is literally way better than the Panzer 4A. Now, of course, it's been modified in-game for obvious reasons. But there's also something seriously wrong here. The in-game model, which has not been HD modified, heads up, Wargaming, you're forgetting a tank here. This is no way HD. This looks like basic skin. It does. Compared to other ones where you'd know the difference if you saw it. Here, let's look at the Panzer 4H, for example. You can see the difference. Cleaner, sharper, nicer look versus, well, kind of toned down colors. This thing looks like it's been through the ringer a few times and the HD is worn off, yeah? Anyway, this tank is a mistake by Wargaming. When I say a mistake, what I mean here is the model they're representing is wrong to what the stats over here are telling you armor-wise. This tank, okay, this is obviously an early version of the Panzer 4D. The Panzer 4D saw action, obviously in France, Poland, and in North Africa. This version, stat-wise, would definitely not be North Africa. This was not part of DAC at all. DAC standing for Deutsche Afrika Korps. No way. Yet, at the same time, the model clearly depicts that it is, yet the stats do not. Well, what do I mean by this? Simple. My knowledge of the Panzer 4 tanks, I know, is a bit much, but this much I know, and this much I think impacts the game knowing this. This is meant for, obviously, North African campaign, simply because of these engine doors on the back. These venting slats right here, they were added to the African Panzer IV-D because of the high heat and the proper venting to the engine. That's what that's about. So that is the key giveaway right here. These venting slots. The earlier Panzer IV-Ds had them, but not in this amount. They had very little slats for their engine. Because the weather obviously is cooler in Europe than North Africa. But upon noticing that and knowing about the tank, I started to do a little more research when I saw this and knew right off the bat this is supposed to be an earlier version and not a DAC version, simply because the armor is absolutely wrong. Here you're clearly trying to say this is North African, yet the armor here is absolutely wrong. The North African Panzer IV had 30 millimeters of bolted on extra armor all the way around. 30 more. This would put the hull armor at the front at least 60 of bolted on armor. Is it that hard to actually represent that in game? Or even changing the stats? I mean, you're obviously going for the DAC type of Panzer IV-D, but they don't. Why? I don't know. Maybe they didn't think people were really into tanks when they made this, that were playing this. I had knowledge of tanks prior to this, and that number just baffles me. Why they wouldn't not change the armor value, add a new graphic, hopefully in the new HD model when they decide to make it, they plan on putting the extra bolted on armor of 30. Would that actually impede players fighting this tank? Okay, you have to take into the big picture. What are you fighting at Tier 4? Matildas. Matilda's front armor is 75 millimeters. You're telling me this thing getting 60 is going to be an issue for a Matilda? The punch through? Absolutely not. Lighter tanks will have a harder issue. Just zip around the back and blast it in the back. I don't see why adding bolted on armor of extra 30 millimeters would be an issue. I don't see how this tank would be broken. It's still very much a destroyable tank. Just bolting on extra armor on the sides and on the front and to the rear is not going to be game breaking. I mean, right now this thing can't really take a shot. I mean, it could, but it's not meant to.